And from the historian for Picatinny Arsenal, recommended by Gus. He did something productive for us. Let's hear it for Gus. Patrick, we really appreciate
Thank you for having me here this afternoon.
Thank you for coming.
I apologize to the ladies for taking your attention away from Mr. Costner up there. My name is Patrick Owens. Can everybody hear me, by the way?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, nice small
You
group.
project well.
Because my voice is going with the ears. So did my hearing. I am the historian of Picatinny Arsenal. That means I am a government historian. Many military bases do have historians there to keep regular reports each year on what's going on. So someday in the future, somebody brings it up. Excuse me. Miss, can I have a glass of water over here, please? Thank you. I once got a catch in my throat giving a talk once and never been embarrassed by it ever since. I do annual reports. I answer questions about the history both at Picatinny and for the public. And occasionally nice groups like you invite me out to run my mouth about the history of Picatinny Arsenal. Which began as, if you get tired of looking at me, put that on those chairs, That is a binder of photos. I'm going to be talking a little bit about a big explosion in 1926. And that is a bunch of newspaper clippings about the explosion.
That's not
so if you feel like walking around or afterwards, look at them, that's it. Okay, Picatinny Arsenal in 1880.
A lot of things that they
Which one of
was
you
the
guys
founding
were born
day,
then?
specifically 6 September 1880. The government began planning to have an arsenal, actually not an arsenal, a powder depot, a storage place. Depot stores things, arsenals make things, according to official government definitions. It opened as a depot to store black powder for the forts along the Atlantic coastline. A couple of them are still there. Fort Jay, Fort Hamilton, a few others are still standing in New York. Hamilton is still an active Army base. Hamilton, now when they started planning this right after the Civil War. 1866 said, well, we'll make some depots. A mere 13 years later, they appointed a committee to search out a site for the depot. In government time, 13 years is that. And they picked it up, and so 1879, 1880, the committee's running around New York, Hudson Valley, New York, and eastern New Jersey to find a site. They wanted a site that was rural, so if all this powder they were going to store exploded, it wouldn't kill too many people. They wanted it close to transportation, railroads, and in that time the Morris Canal was still going, which was a point in Picatinny's favor. And the third point, they wanted hills on both sides. If any of you have been up by that area of Picatinny, you know there are hills up there. Those valleys were to protect the surrounding communities not in case of an explosion, when there was an explosion. When you're working around explosives, it's not if, it's when. And so they picked that area. They figured that they had the perfect spot up by Peekskill, New York. But the people at Peekskill held out for more money. Can you believe it? Some people tried to hold the government up for money.
usually
Who ever heard of such a thing? So they came to this. Actually, I think we were the third place. There was one minor place in between. To this place up by what is now Route 15, just off exit 32. New Jersey, what exit? Right. And they picked it. 6 September 1880, they opened the Dover Powder Depot, which the first commander, being a very sharp guy by government standards, said, hey, it ain't in Dover. So he sent about 4 or 5 names in: Mount Pleasant, Mount Hope, Morris for the county, Rockaway for the township. Most of Picatinny, a little sliver, is in Rockaway Township. And he says, sends this list off by telegram to the Ordnance Department of D.C., gives them these names. In the middle of the list, he stuck this little name from a peak on the arsenal, on the depot, called Picatinny. It struck a chord down there, and 4 days later, 10 September 1880, it became the Picatinny Powder Depot. If you ask Picatinny, best guess of the scholars of the Lenape Native American language. It's an educated guess, though, and it makes sense. Is see that cliff, rugged cliff by water. It makes sense anyway. The Powder Depot opens. Oh, this thing is going on automatic on me again. As I said, the name changed. That Middle Forge monument. There's a legend that Picatinny goes back to the Revolution. On Picatinny land were a couple of iron forges that during the Revolution turned out iron bar, not cannon shot. It was taken other places, we turned into cannon shot and other items for Washington's army. It's a very picky connection to the Revolution, but Picatinny takes what it can get. Though that monument is actually, that centerpiece is a trip hammer that was run by water power at the Middle Forge, which is at the base of what is now called Lake Picatinny. And the tongs and shovel, they were other tools there. The forge was standing but long out of business when Picatinny bought it. The other forge was at the dam on Lake, was now a dam on Lake Denmark, and it closed by 1810. So it, as I said, a minor connection to the Revolution. So it goes on. That's the main intersection. Now it's a traffic light instead of that beautiful tree. That building on your right is still standing, actually. It was a stable back then. Stable and carriage house for the people who lived on the base, especially. And then it became, when I was a stable, it became officers' quarters. It's now an administrative building, but it's still there. It's been remodeled several times. Picatinny has a lot of its early buildings still standing. What government calls adaptive reuse. This building is still standing. Got some aluminum siding on, it looks a little more modern, but that basic brick building is there. Begun in 1880, finished 1882. Oh, $51,000. For approximately 10,000 barrels of black powder. Now, just to give you some figures I forgot to give you. Picatinny, the initial purchase of Picatinny was 1,800 acres total, about 3 or 4 major purchases. Just have to be interested to know that the cost for all that was the total amount. Okay, excuse me. $62,000 for all that land. The total payroll for the first month was when they have a full brew was about $1,500 a day. People like, say, General Agers back then made 75 cents to $1.25 a day. Okay, there go the
yeah, that's right.
10,000 barrels. What did I say? Okay, for about 27 years, Picatinny just goes along storing powder and making powder bags. That's bags to hold the powder that you use on artillery pieces. And then in 1907, the Army opened a powder factory, decided after the Spanish-American War it needed a powder factory to make its own smokeless powder. Anybody knows anything about chemistry will tell you 2 things about smokeless powder. 1, it ain't smokeless. 2, it ain't a powder. It's kind of a granular form, and it makes a lot less smoke than black powder. Black powder, you fire a few bags of black powder can cover the whole block, the smoke from it. But it's an improvement. Well, explosive D, that was armor-piercing rounds. It has a little less sensors, so they could go through the armor and explode inside. Explosive D was the main anti-armor explosive in the U.S. Army well through Vietnam. In 1911 became training officers in use of new explosives. Oh, why they picked Picatinny? Well, the main reason they picked Picatinny for the powder factory was the Army already owned the land. Never discount the chance to do it on the cheap when you're talking about government reason. Another reason was they wanted their own factory because they were afraid of a monopoly. By monopoly, I meant DuPont. DuPont pretty much controlled the explosive industry at that time. In fact, a few years later, 1911, 1912, there was a big antitrust suit that divided DuPont into DuPont, Hercules, and Atlas. And in this area, there was a DuPont thing just across the line in Compton Lakes, just out of Morris County. DuPont got a facility there. Hercules got the facility in Kendra that lasted to their last explosion about 1991. And then Atlas went up to Mount Arlington. They got the facility there. So it's a mini circle how that case worked out. Okay, then during World War I, made powder, loaded shells, trained officers, also held a couple of units who were about to go to Europe. Okay, that's World War I. Useful, we were useful during World War I. I won't say the Hun wouldn't have been defeated if there had been no Picatinny, but we had our uses. 1921, they started to get into research. We took over fuse research from Frankfurt Arsenal in Philadelphia. That was the first time we took over a mission from Frankfurt. It wouldn't be the last. Other research involved explosives, grenades, large caliber ammunition, anything large caliber. We didn't do small caliber ammunition. That was done at Frankfurt. Non-hygroscopic, that became non-hygroscopic powders. That was very important work all the way into World War I. And in 1921, Picatinny opened its most important facility. Hey, don't knock it. I might tell a story about that later. Okay. Now, I'm going to bring up something. I'm going to go back. Picatinny opens in 1880. 1891, at least about 350 acres to the Navy to set up its ammunition depot. Wow. The Lake Denmark Naval Ammunition Depot. If you're on Picatinny, what we call the Navy Hill section, the northeast hill of Picatinny. The Navy came for the same reasons the Army had stored its ammo there. And prior to that, prior to 1891, it had been storing its ammo on Ellis Island in New York Harbor. Ellis Island. Everybody talks about what a famous immigration station it was. That did not become the immigration station to 1891. It lasted immigration station to the 50s, but after restrictions on immigration in the 20s, it closed down. So the immigration station moved there. The Navy moved its ammo out to here.
Excuse me, sir. Bayonne, wasn't Bayonne?
Now, for the first, say, 36 years, Picatinny and the Navy get along no worse than any other neighbors. You know, they're fine. But after World War I, the problem gets set up because after any war, there's an awful lot of ammo and other items, as we say, in the pipeline. Then it gets used, you got to store it somewhere. The Navy decides to put all its large caliber ammo at Lake Denmark. I said stored. Try dumped. They put it in new magazines, what they call temporary magazines. the government has a very loose definition of the word temporary. You can see a building go up, called temporary, it'll last another, come back 20 years later, it's still there, it's still a temporary building.
Temporary
This is one of the temporary magazines. On 10 July 1926, lightning struck one of those temporary magazines. That's it, that's the one that struck.
The lightning.
It's burned, and it blew. It blew 2 other magazines, so you got 3 magazines blowing at once. The ammunition in those magazines contained a total of, about 2.5 million pounds of TNT. The only advice I can give you when 2.5 million pounds of TNT go off, be someplace else. Here's the depot just before the explosion. That is the Navy commander's house in the left forefront. That is still standing. That survived the blast. Damage, $47 million burnt up. Building damage at Picatinny, as I said, 19 dead, 38 seriously injured. Of the dead, 30 that you'll see in those newspaper stories, lots of wild figures on the number of dead.
So that was the
But they're
CNN
right
of the
out.
day.
The official figure is 19. The 19 dead. 16 of the dead were sailors and Marines stationed at the base. They saw the fire in that first magazine. They're running to it. They're doing their duty. They're going to fight the fire. Running right into the explosion. That is what the government calls a lesson learned the hard way. One person in Picatinny died, an Army officer, was in his garage and it collapsed on him. The 2 other deaths were women. One was the wife of the chief clerk at the Naval Depot, Ida Waters. Chief clerk doesn't sound like a big deal, but he was the ranking civilian on the Naval Depot. He doesn't know what's happened to his wife. He's banged up from the explosion himself, and he's going all weekend because he's the guy who knows where everything is. Anyway, as I said, the other woman was the sister-in-law of a Navy warrant officer. And they lived on post. She'd say, hey, I'll visit my sister this week. Okay, you think you planned bad vacations? Yeah. So she died, Mrs. Feeney from Brooklyn. Now, I said this is 19 dead, 38 injured. That was lucky. Doesn't sound it, but it was lucky. That July 10 was a Saturday. It took place on a Saturday afternoon. It took place at 5:20 p.m. on a Saturday afternoon. Because we know that because the first explosion stopped the face of a clock down in Rockaway Borough. 5:20. And let's say, figuring about 530 people at the Picatinny, maybe another 75 or so at the naval base. A couple of hundred body count is quite unimaginable.
You mean if it was other than a Saturday, is that
Right.
what you mean?
It was other than Saturday afternoon. The work week for federal employees there then was 5.5 days. So if it had been Saturday morning, same thing. Also, the Navy in those days used to send their paymasters around to outlying districts on odd days. It happened the paymaster came to Lake Denmark that morning. And so about half the sailors and Marines had leave. And they're out spending their money. Maybe some of them were not spending their money in politically correct ways, but for them the wages of sin were life. That'll give you an idea. That's just how barren the land was. Oh, this is a great story. as I said, it's a Saturday afternoon. The papers, the newspapers there, really don't get on the story till Monday morning. No. Okay, well, that's a nice one. Okay, doesn't matter. Okay, the paper comes out Saturday afternoon. The papers really don't pick it up. I think one local paper had something in its Sunday edition. But all the others, Sunday papers go to bed pretty early, so. Monday morning, it's over all the papers. Some of them are over there. And they're squawk. And, of course, the politicians are going to get into line. The governor is there. We're going to get these bases out of the area. We're not going to endanger our good citizens. The senators, Edge and Evans, Senators Edge and Evans at the time, we're going to get these out of there. We're going to spare you. Okay. By this time, the Army and the Navy have sent boards down to investigate what's going on and make decisions. In front of those boards, begging them not to close the bases of the mayors of Rockaway, Dover, and Wharton. And I imagine other politicians were there, but I know they were there. Guess whose constituents worked at Picatinny and Lake Denmark? There's a story that the governor ran into the mayor, I think it was Mayor Bassett of Dover at the time. And the governor says to the mayor, don't worry, we're going to get these out of there. We're going to save you. You're not going to have any more problems with those bases. We're going to move them out to Utah or Arizona, somewhere in the middle of nowhere. And the mayor looks at him and says, oh, no, you're not. I know a $5 million payroll when I smell one. I have to call that story apocryphal because I've got some sources for it, but I just haven't got it as firm as I like as a historian. But it makes sense. If you know how politicians think, it makes sense. Now, what happened with the Navy Depot? The Navy Depot lasted through World War II. They rebuilt it. They never got another mission. So it just... Okay, well, that's good. That fits in with what I'm going to talk about. You seem to be jumping. It just stored depot. And then during World War II, the Navy built newer, more modern storage depots. Earl is one of them. Hawthorne, which is now an Army depot out in Nevada, is another one. So it kind of became obsolete. So they closed it in late 45. I think it was 49 before they shipped their last stuff out, but they closed it. But at the same time, over in Pompton Plains is a company called Reaction Motors, which is a pioneering rocket test crew. And it did a lot of work with the Navy during the war. And they lived in its owners, of course, lived in the area. Thing is, if you go around shooting off rockets, your neighbors are not going to feel fondly toward you. Pompton Plains and Pequannock Township got on Reaction Motors, played some games with their explosives license and the like, and basically ran them out of town. Lawrence Lovell, who was head of Reaction Motors, was a real homeboy, said to the Navy, hey, look, you can send me up someplace, but it's got to be 20 minutes from where I live. I think he lived over around the Boomtown area. Don't quote me on that. And the Navy came on. They reopened the base as a rocket test stand. The official name was the Naval Air Rocket Test Station. And among the things they did was the power pack for Chuck Yeager's X-1 sound barrier breaking plane, X-15 rocket plane that still holds some records, I think. Very Lunar shuttle. Now, we kept up that work, even though the land and the facilities reverted to Picatinny. And that rocket testing stayed at Picatinny until '72. By then, they were ready to move it all out to White Sands, and the Jefferson Township had built up enough to where it complained a lot. And the Reaction Motor, by that time, was a division of Thiokol, which decided and wanted to get out of the facility. So for a lot of reasons, it closed up. So that's the story of the Navy at Picatinny, except it just came back. they've got a lot of their testing of gun testing and gun ammunition is now going on at Picatinny. We've asked them, please, do not blow up the area again. We'd really appreciate it. That's testing a rocket back in 1950. Okay, World War II, Picatinny carried the load. And when World War II broke out, everybody talks about what a big military-industrial complex we get. Picatinny was the only place doing any real loading of large caliber ammo. The only place really turned out the small caliber ammo was Frankfurt Arsenal down in let's see, the high, that 17,900 employees was the high. Right now we got about 6,000 floating around the arsenal, counting contractors and that. So as a kid, there were women and more, but women and men, while African Americans came in pretty much for the first time. See that point I make? We gave up doing a lot of the production because Picatinny taught private industry how to do the job. After World War II, private industry gets rid of its machinery and forgets how to do the job. So we're doing the same job in Korea and Vietnam. After he knows some of you helped do some of that, right? That fuse line you see there, they're putting fuse, that was the longest fuse assembly line in the world at the time. I found a cotton replacement for silk. Sounds like a big deal, right? Japan controlled most of the silk producing areas during World War II. You know how they decide the best cotton to replace silk? A Picatinny engineer just went down to went through his wife's laundry bag, found tested some types of cotton on them to see which burnt best, and then he went to the local department stores and bought some more until he found one working. Talk about high-tech research. Propellant, the first bazooka, I'm going to come back to the bazooka in the morning again because the first bazooka had a problem. That explosive device, that an Air Force might, for aircraft, identify friend or foe devices in aircraft. Well, they had one so top secret in World War I. It was so secret they couldn't use it because of a plane crash. So Picatinny developed an explosive device to put in it so that the plane crash, well, just the device, not the plane. Pilots might have objected to that. Some of the bombing they did, dam bursting bombs. The Palesi oil fields in '44, that was a big bombing mission.
Wow.
And skip bombing. You needed a special fuse for skip bombs because you needed delay. Because a skip bomber flew very low to the ground, and the crews were very interested in being able to get out of there before the bomb went off. Artillery fuses, boosters, grenades, landmines. Most of them were Picatinny developments. I can't think of one offhand that wasn't. Although a couple, like the S-mine, the landmine, the bouncing Betty mine, that they stole from the Germans. Hey, that wasn't the first time. World War I, the Springfield rifle, a ripoff of the German Mauser. And after each war, they'll collect enemy items and study them. That's still a major job. The guiding principle of Picatinny research, you never know where you can steal a good idea. That's a guy loading powder? No. There they are. Post-war. Up there, I told you what happened. That's right, furloughs immediately after the Nagasaki bombing. They wouldn't go 1,000 a week, only because they can't manage it any faster. Then we get into manufacturing city. As Dover Group went down, the citizens, they're not even talking about closing the place. It's not even considered. Senator Edge is back in office. He's them all, keep it open. Everybody is by that time. So they did go down, they called on them, and they got a lot of jobs to keep them going. Coiwitz rifle ammo was one of them, a few other missions, just to keep the place open, keep a workforce there, to keep the expertise on the payroll, which meant they're ready for Korea. I said the first bazooka, which was a 2.36-inch item, not so hot. Picatinny developed a better one, a 3.5-inch one that was able to stop the Russian T-34 tank. It developed it, and it spent the entire interwar years developing it. I think it went through 5 different, of the rocket. I think there were 5 different versions over the years. 5 doesn't sound much, but you gotta build it, you gotta put it through all sorts of tests, you gotta take it back, you gotta schedule testing at proving grounds. It takes time. But when they needed them, Picatinny production was able to go from pilot plant to full scale in just 24 hours because those experienced workers were still there. Supply new tank requirements. That thing, the 280 millimeter shell for the atomic anti-cannon, that was, to that close, that's a problem when you tackle a nuclear weapon. It's usually too close to whoever's firing it. That does not really telescope the difference, the distance that much. But that was developed. Again, I talked about, they went to develop that shell. I talked about the big military industrial complex. The designer of that was one man whom they ran down to the Pentagon and locked him in the room in the Pentagon to work on, to design the shell. They let him go 1 day a week because he had to finish up a degree he was taking, I think, in either Stevens or New Jersey Institute of Technology. But once he got rolling, he got a big staff. I think it was 4 or 5 people. Chinese and Koreans more than willing to come to the table. Again, instructive private industry. Korea, Vietnam, yes. We went up to 7,200. We dropped back somewhat after Korea, but you didn't get the big drop. Number one, it never jumped up that big. And 2, you really weren't into nobody was expecting a permanent state of peace. Vietnam, okay, same thing. We were picking them up. These are the items. I don't know any Vietnam people here. The Claymore mine, that's the light anti-tank weapon. I fired one of those ones with my ear. I forgot to put in an earplug. My ear has never forgiven me. What else? I carry the M70, the 40 millimeter grenade launcher. Very light, 5-pound item. But it came out about 70 pounds worth of ammo. Beehive ammo, that's those things that fires the darts. Motor, again, retrained private industry. Oh, but in 1977, Picatinny, up to that point, Picatinny worked only with munitions, not with weapons. 1977, the Army decided to close a bunch of its arsenals, and Picatinny took over small arms work and fire control work from Frankfurt Arsenal. We were responsible for it closing. Frankfurt Arsenal's work came down to us. Took some missions from Rock Island Arsenal too. We made out on that closing in '77. Became strictly a research and development organization, installation, responsibility for all U.S. Army weapons and munitions. This is still the mission. Somebody, just a story, not anybody's going to believe it. I gave a talk years ago to a group of seniors. I like to go to seniors groups because there's half a chance, quarter of a chance I'll meet somebody older than me. And one of them said, remembered back when the closure went on, he said, is it true that the reason the Army picked Picatinny over Frankfurt, there was a lot of politicians squawking about on both sides about that. So he asked me, it's really true, we heard it was because Picatinny had a golf course and Frankfurt isn't. I went into my neither confirm nor deny mode on that. There's no evidence for it, but they couldn't come right out and fully, didn't want to go on record as denying it. So we're doing that mission. These are some items we did for Gulf War I. You were around for Gulf War I. Like the Patriot missile, big item then. Just before when you were working on the safe and arm device for the Patriot missile at the time. I should have had it on there, I apologize. today, these are items they're using today. Including that, there's that talent bomb that goes around. I always finish on that because we developed newer things since then, but none as cute as he is. Picatinny is still here, still doing its job, and I'm still here if you have any questions.
Did Picatinny at any point have one of the rail guns up there?
I'm sorry, Mike.
Did Picatinny at any point have one of the rail guns that we saw up at the
We
arsenal?
have a railgun, yeah.
There's one there.
Still have one, yeah.
What's the caliber?
I really can't get
Like
into
a,
that.
oh, I
can't.
see. Got it.
Actually, I don't know it, but I never checked it, but it's there.
It's okay.
It's there to check most large caliber artillery.
So now just
With one of those guns.
comment, that nuclear shot you showed.
What?
That nuclear shot you showed.
Yeah,
I was there for that.
that was fired out
That
in
was fired
Nevada.
That was fired from 7 miles away. And I got to watch it from a slit trench a mile and a half
I
away.
have one. I have an Air Force magazine with the F-15 on it.
That's the
That
one?
one, yeah.
Yes, sir.
That's
the
a
only
place
one.
called, I think it's called Frenchman Flats in
Yeah,
Nevada.
I was out there.
Oh,
Army sent me out to watch it.
yeah, that's about 1953, I think they fired.
53 or 54, yeah.
That
53.
photo is 53. I think they did it,
They
fired it
looked-
just
they looked
before
almost-
the
They're
re-array.
7 miles from the gun to ground, 7 miles from the gun to ground zero. But
Which
the,
may not have been enough.
well, I was watching for a mile and a half. The gun was way behind me, Jordan.
As I said, the problem with what they call tactical nuclear weapons is you could be too close to.
Oh, yeah. But they,
In fact, one people tell me they really should have used a bigger cannon for that. More range. I think they had something
Well, that thing would
like
go,
17 miles on the range of the cannon, and they wanted 25.
they rolled that thing around Germany for years. Sergeant's purpose. But that shot was so accurate. That went off within 1 meter in all 3 dimensions. Of the line.
There's a meter and 12 inches off. That is good for that for artillery.
No computers, all manual fire direction.
We had the guys that were working on it.
No. Okay, thank you.
Any nuclear weapons.
Can I get, if I,
It is, I gotta get official here. It is the policy of the Department of Defense neither to confirm nor deny the presence of nuclear materials at any of its installations. Not that anybody would tell me anyway, but that's your
the
answer.
Navy says the same thing.
They wouldn't tell the guys what to fire.
Before you come out, I
We
want to
want to
check.
there are no fire alarms there. No fire alarms.
It's an application for the Air Force Association, okay?
Well, I can't.
You want to fill it out
I
now?
can't fill out an application now. I'm not sure how long it'll take.
Is that right? You're not sure?
Well, I got a couple of years.
We can always, yeah, but you can always, I mean, it's on a year-to-year basis.
No, but I'm up there. Let's put it that way.
Oh, okay.
I don't get out too much, especially right here.
Oh, okay, you want to take this with you, or fill it out? Well,
Take that as a souvenir if you don't mind.
no, no problem, no problem.
You want to look at those newspaper stories over there?
So they all got
All right,
done.
back up.
It was done on purpose because they wouldn't.
One point I'm going to make about those newspaper stories, a lot of those stories talk about whether or not Picatinny will survive. If you go through them, you see a lot names of a lot of
Check the
newspapers
stairs
still
before I
on.
take Herb that way.
Got
Not
a
that
railing
I'm
on
a
at least one side.
We will survive.
mean type like that, but
No, that was nothing right there. I went down and helped to close Frankfurt Arsenal.
I'm sorry, what?
I went down and helped to close Frankfurt Arsenal.
Oh, okay.
On T.D. White. First time I was there, the colonel in charge gets up and says, well, everybody here, the personnel here in
What
Frankfurt,
does it look like?
they will say they'll move to Picatinny with it.
Oh.
I said, take your rose-colored glasses off. It ain't gonna happen.
You want to present them with a magazine? Yeah, okay.
Hey, Patrick, Army Security's here. They're curious what you did with their notebook.
Okay, I'm stuck. I'm set.
Yep.
You want to turn it off or leave it?
Leave it up. Take a picture.
Oh, okay, all right, leave it on.
Leave it on?
So, yeah, leave it
Okay, leave it
on.
on, okay,
Yeah.
sure.
So
I'll
Patrick,
get them down.
we want to thank you for coming up and
No worries.
giving us the presentation. And what we normally do is provide a membership. This is a little airport. You didn't talk about any nuclear.
Walking with your hands.
Good, the proof I was wearing today.
You wanna look this way, you look this way, look.
So why don't we look over here so we can get a picture? We're going to put you in on, can we put you in our newsletter?
Sure, feel
Yeah,
free.
you'll hold the magazine up there, sure.
All right, yeah.
Okay.
And maybe you'll come to our, you're going to be in a
I am,
member.
I'm farther up and
Okay.
that's my hearing window.
Okay.
Decent.
It comes with the territory of Picatinny though, doesn't it? You know,
Yeah.
hearing goes down.
Thank you
Okay.
very much.
Thank you,
I like
thank
working
you.
on B-36s right
Good.
now.
I avoid meetings when